Private Lauren Williams had failed every test, missed every target, and embarrassed herself in every drill for 3 straight weeks. Her drill sergeant was filling out discharge papers when SEAL Commander Patterson arrived for a routine inspection. "That recruit won't make it through another week," the sergeant warned. Harper watched Lauren struggle through another failed weapons exercise, then walked over and handed her a folded piece of paper. "Private, you have new orders. Report to the tactical range in full combat gear." Lauren looked at the paper and saw something that made her hands stop shaking for the first time since boot camp began. The Marine Corps Recruit Depot at Parris Island, South Carolina, had broken stronger people than Private Lauren Williams. 3 weeks into the most grueling training program in the American military, Lauren was drowning in a sea of failure that seemed to deepen with every sunrise. Her drill instructor, Staff Sergeant Patterson, had seen thousands of recruits pass through these gates. Some succeeded spectacularly, some failed honorably, and some, like Lauren Williams, seemed destined for neither glory nor dignity. "Williams!" Patterson's voice cracked across the training ground like a whip. "Front and center!" Lauren jogged forward, her uniform already soaked with sweat despite the early morning hour. Her rifle felt foreign in her hands, her movements awkward and uncertain. Around her, the other recruits moved with increasing precision and confidence, while she remained trapped in a cycle of mistakes and corrections that seemed impossible to break. "Williams, explain to me how someone graduates high school with honors and can't figure out how to field strip an M16. "No excuse, sir," Lauren replied, the standard response that had become her most frequently used phrase. "No excuse is right. You failed weapons qualification 3 times. You can't hit the broadside of a barn from 10 feet away. Your physical fitness scores are below minimum standards. Your tactical knowledge is non-existent." Patterson paused, studying her with the kind of analytical stare that could strip paint. "Tell me, Williams, why exactly are you here?" Lauren stood at attention, staring straight ahead. The honest answer was that she didn't know anymore. 3 weeks ago, she'd been certain that military service was her calling. She'd scored high on the ASVAB, impressed her recruiter, and arrived at Parris Island with dreams of serving her country with distinction. Now she was the platoon joke. "I want to serve my country, sir." "Want doesn't qualify you to carry a weapon in defense of American lives, Williams. Competence does. And right now, you're showing me none." The morning continued with another round of weapons training that Lauren approached with the same result she'd achieved every previous day. Her shots scattered across the target like confetti, missing the scoring zones entirely. Her weapon handling was clumsy, her stance unstable, her breathing erratic. By noon, Patterson had seen enough. "Williams, report to the company office after chow. Bring your gear." Every recruit knew what that meant. Lauren was being processed out, sent home with a failure classification that would follow her for the rest of her life. She joined the Marines to prove herself capable of something meaningful, and instead, she was proving herself incapable of anything at all. As she sat in the chow hall, picking at food she couldn't taste, Lauren wondered what she would tell her family. Her father, a Vietnam veteran who'd never quite hidden his disappointment that none of his children had followed his military path. Her mother, who'd been so proud when Lauren enlisted. Her younger sister, who'd looked up to her for the first time in her life when she'd announced her intention to become a Marine. Now she would return home as living proof that wanting something wasn't enough. "Williams?" Lauren looked up to see a man she didn't recognize approaching her table. He wore combat fatigues with no visible rank insignia, but something about his bearing suggested authority that went beyond anything she'd encountered at Parris Island. "You're Williams?" "Yes, sir." "I'm Commander Harper. I need you to come with me." Lauren glanced around the chow hall, looking for guidance from her fellow recruits or any familiar face. Finding none, she stood and followed the mysterious commander outside. Harper led her to a building she'd never entered, past security checkpoints that required clearances she didn't possess. Finally, they arrived at a small office that looked more like a college professor's study than a military workspace. "Sit down, Williams." Lauren remained at attention. "Sir, I prefer to stand." "That wasn't a request." She sat. Harper settled behind a desk covered with files, documents, and what appeared to be surveillance photographs. He studied her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. "Tell me about your background, Williams." "Sir, my background is in my file. I've read your file. I want to hear it from you." Lauren recited the basic facts of her life: small-town upbringing, academic achievement, athletic participation in high school track and field, part-time job at her uncle's security company during summers. "Your uncle's security company," Harper interrupted. "What kind of work did you do there?" "General duties, sir. Filing, answering phones, some basic equipment maintenance." "According to your uncle, you spent most of your time on the shooting range." Lauren felt a chill. She had indeed spent countless hours at the range, but that had been personal time, not official duties. How did this commander know about that? "Yes, sir. I enjoyed target shooting in my free time." "Your uncle also says you were the most naturally gifted shooter he'd ever seen. Says you could hit targets at distances that challenged his professional security staff." "I don't know about that, sir." Harper opened a file and began reading. "Regional Shooting Competition, 2019. First place in women's precision rifle, first place in tactical pistol, third place overall in mixed competition against shooters with decades of experience." He looked up. "You were 17 years old." Lauren said nothing. Her competitive shooting had been a private passion, something she'd pursued for personal satisfaction rather than recognition. "State Championship, 2020. First place in 3 separate categories. The range officer noted that your accuracy under pressure was unprecedented for someone of her age and experience level." "Sir, I don't understand why." "Williams, you arrive at Paris Island with some of the most impressive marksmanship credentials I've ever seen, and then proceed to fail every weapons qualification we put in front of you. That strikes me as mathematically impossible." Harper stood and walked to a window overlooking the training grounds where Lauren had embarrassed herself daily for 3 weeks. "Unless," he continued, "you're deliberately failing." The accusation hung in the air like smoke. Lauren felt her carefully constructed facade beginning to crack. "Sir, why would I deliberately fail?" "That's what I intend to find out." Harper returned to his desk and withdrew a folder marked with classifications Lauren had never seen before. "I'm going to tell you something that doesn't officially exist, Williams. There are certain military operations that require capabilities beyond what we can teach in standard training programs. Operations that require individuals with very specific skill sets, operating under very specific conditions." He opened the folder, revealing photographs and documents that Lauren couldn't quite make out from her position. "We've been watching you since you arrived. Not your performance in standard drills, your behavior when you think no one is looking. The way you handle weapons when the instructors aren't watching. The way you move through tactical exercises when you're not trying to fail." Lauren felt her heart rate accelerate. She had indeed been deliberately sabotaging her own performance, but she'd thought she was being subtle about it. "Why?" Harper asked simply, the question she'd been dreading. Lauren stared at her hands, trying to formulate an answer that wouldn't sound insane. "Permission to speak freely, sir?" "Granted." "Sir, I came here wanting to serve my country, but after the first week, I realized that everything they're teaching us is designed to make us better at killing people. And I discovered that I'm very, very good at killing people." She looked up, meeting Harper's gaze directly. "That scared me, sir." Harper nodded slowly. "Go on." "In civilian shooting competitions, you're aiming at paper targets, static, controlled conditions, no pressure beyond wanting to win a trophy. But here, when they started training us for combat scenarios, I realized that what I was learning wasn't sport shooting. It was how to end human lives with maximum efficiency." "And that bothered you?" "Sir, it bothered me that it didn't bother me." Harper studied her for a long moment, then closed the classified folder. "Williams, what if I told you there were ways to serve your country that didn't involve traditional combat? What if there were missions that required your specific skills, but in contexts where that capability could save American lives instead of simply ending enemy lives?" "I'd say that sounds too good to be true, sir." Harper smiled, the first human expression Lauren had seen from him. Most good things do. He reached into his desk and withdrew a single sheet of paper, folded once and sealed with red wax. "Williams, your current training is terminated. You have new orders." Lauren accepted the paper with hands that were steadier than they'd been in weeks. She broke the seal and read the contents. Classified orders. Special Operations Training Command, Private Lauren Williams. Immediate reassignment report to Building 7, Tactical Range. Charlie full combat gear. Live ammunition authorized duration. Indefinite authorization. Commander Harper, Special Projects. "Sir, what is this?" "It's an opportunity to discover what you're actually capable of when you stop trying to be less than you are." Lauren read the orders again, trying to process their implications. Special Operations Training Command. A program that doesn't officially exist for people who officially aren't here. "And if I refuse?" Harper's expression grew serious. "Then you go home tomorrow with a failure classification and spend the rest of your life wondering what might have been different." Lauren stood, holding the orders that represented either salvation or damnation. Everything she'd learned about military service suggested that volunteer programs were usually more dangerous than mandatory ones. "Sir, will this training prepare me for combat?" "Williams, this training will prepare you for things that make combat look like a recreational activity." "And afterwards?" "Afterwards, you'll be qualified for missions that require capabilities beyond what most people can imagine. Missions that save American lives by preventing conflicts rather than winning them." Lauren thought about her 3 weeks of deliberate failure, her carefully hidden capabilities, her fear of what she might become if she allowed herself to be everything she was capable of being. "How do you know I won't fail this training too?" Harper stood and extended his hand. "Because this time, failure isn't an option, and because I've seen what you can do when you think no one is watching." Lauren shook his hand, feeling calluses that suggested Harper had personal experience with the kind of training he was offering. "One question, sir. How long have you been watching me?" "Since the day you enlisted, Williams. Your competitive shooting records flagged our recruitment algorithms. We've been waiting to see if you had the psychological profile to match your technical skills. And deliberately failing basic training demonstrated the right psychological profile? Deliberately failing because you were afraid of your own capabilities demonstrated exactly the kind of self-awareness we need for this program." Harper walked her to the door, then paused. "Williams, I want you to understand something. The training you're about to begin will show you capabilities you didn't know you possessed. It will push you beyond limits you thought were absolute, and it will prepare you for operations that will never appear in any official record." "Understood, sir." "More importantly, it will teach you how to use your natural abilities in service of something larger than yourself, without losing your humanity in the process." Lauren nodded, though she wasn't entirely certain what that meant. "Report to Tactical Range Charlie in 1 hour. Wear full combat gear and bring every weapon you've been issued. The instructors there will be expecting you." "Yes, sir." "And Williams?" "Sir? Stop trying to be less than you are. Your country needs what you're capable of becoming." Lauren left the building carrying orders that would transform her from a failed recruit into something she couldn't yet comprehend. As she walked across the base toward her barracks, she felt the weight of expectations and possibilities that had been absent for 3 weeks. For the first time since arriving at Paris Island, she wasn't afraid of what tomorrow would bring. An hour later, Lauren stood at the entrance to Tactical Range Charlie, a facility she'd never seen before, despite 3 weeks on base. The building looked innocuous from the outside, standard military architecture with no distinguishing features. Inside was a different world entirely. The range stretched farther than any she'd ever used, with targets at distances marked up to 1,500 meters. The equipment was more sophisticated than anything she'd encountered in basic training, and the few personnel she could see moved with the kind of fluid precision that marked true professionals. Private Williams. Lauren turned to see a woman approaching, tall, athletic, with the kind of bearing that suggested extensive combat experience. Her uniform bore no rank insignia, but her authority was unmistakable. "I'm your primary instructor. You can call me Rachel." "Ma'am, should I be at attention?" Rachel smiled. Williams, you're not in basic training anymore. Here you'll be judged on performance, not protocol. Rachel led her to a weapons table that held equipment Lauren had only seen in specialized magazines, precision rifles, advanced optics, and ammunition types she couldn't identify. Commander Harper tells me you've been hiding your capabilities. Yes, ma'am. Today we find out exactly what you've been hiding. The next 4 hours redefined Lauren's understanding of her own abilities. Under Rachel's guidance, she engaged targets at distances she'd never attempted, under conditions designed to simulate the stress and complexity of real-world operations. She didn't miss a single shot. More than accuracy, Rachel tested her tactical thinking, her ability to adapt to changing scenarios, her psychological response to pressure that would break most people. Lauren found herself operating at levels she'd never imagined possible. During one particularly challenging exercise, Rachel had Lauren engage multiple moving targets while navigating obstacles under simulated fire. The scenario was designed to overwhelm even experienced operators, but Lauren moved through it with an intuitive understanding of timing, positioning, and priority targeting that impressed even the veteran instructors observing from the control booth. Another exercise tested her ability to make split-second decisions under moral pressure. Rachel created scenarios where Lauren had to identify legitimate targets while protecting civilians in complex, rapidly changing situations. The psychological stress was intense, but Lauren found herself making correct decisions with a speed and accuracy that surprised even her. "Outstanding," Rachel said as they concluded the evaluation. "Harper was right about you." "Ma'am, what happens now?" "Now you begin the real training. What you've shown me today is raw talent. We're going to teach you how to apply that talent in service of operations that protect American interests without anyone ever knowing you were there." Lauren cleaned her weapons with the same meticulous attention she'd applied to everything else that day. For the first time in weeks, she felt like she was exactly where she belonged. "Rachel, can I ask you something?" "Shoot." "How many people know about this program?" Rachel paused in her equipment check. "As few as possible, Williams. The people we train here operate in shadows, accomplish missions that never happened, and protect American lives by preventing conflicts rather than winning them. And we never get recognition for it." Rachel looked at her with an expression that was both proud and sad. "Lauren, the best operations are the ones no one ever knows needed to happen. The greatest victories are the ones where no one realizes there was ever a battle." As they secured the weapons and equipment, Rachel continued her explanation. "The work we do here prepares operators for scenarios where traditional military approaches would create international incidents or escalate situations beyond control. We prevent wars by eliminating specific threats before they can develop into larger conflicts. And that requires people who can operate completely outside official channels. It requires people who understand that sometimes the most patriotic thing you can do is ensure your service never appears in any history book." Rachel walked Lauren through the facility's advanced training areas, rooms designed to simulate every conceivable operational environment, from urban warfare scenarios to long-range precision engagements in hostile territory. Each training space was equipped with technology that could replicate the stress, chaos, and split-second decision-making required for real-world missions. "The psychological preparation is as important as the technical training," Rachel explained as they passed a room where other trainees were engaged in complex simulations. "We're not just teaching you to shoot accurately, we're teaching you to make impossible decisions under impossible pressure while maintaining the moral clarity that separates operators from assassins." Lauren watched through reinforced glass as a male trainee navigated a hostage rescue scenario that seemed to change parameters every few seconds. The man moved with lethal efficiency, while somehow managing to protect civilians who kept appearing in unexpected locations. "How long does this training last?" "As long as it takes," Rachel replied. "Some people complete the program in 6 months, others need 2 years. A few exceptional individuals have required only 8 weeks to reach operational status." "And if someone never reaches operational status, Rachel's expression grew serious. Then they receive a new identity and assignment to a position where their partial training can be useful without compromising security. Everyone who enters this program serves their country, Williams, just not always in the way they originally expected. Rachel showed her additional facilities: a medical training center where operators learned advanced battlefield medicine, a communications lab where they studied encryption and counter-surveillance techniques, and a psychological conditioning center where they learned to maintain cover identities under extreme stress. "We're not just creating superior soldiers," Rachel explained. "We're creating invisible guardians who can operate in any environment, assume any identity, and complete missions that require both lethal precision and absolute discretion." They passed through a section dedicated to language training, where operatives learn to speak multiple languages with native fluency, and a cultural immersion area where they studied the customs, behaviors, and social dynamics of different regions around the world. "The modern battlefield isn't just about superior firepower," Rachel continued. "It's about understanding people, cultures, and the subtle dynamics that can turn a potential conflict into a peaceful resolution, or prevent a crisis from ever developing in the first place." Lauren was particularly impressed by the Technology Integration Lab, where operators learned to use cutting-edge surveillance equipment, communication systems, and defensive technologies that seemed decades ahead of anything she'd seen in regular military training. "Much of what we do involves gathering intelligence and providing early warning about threats before they become unmanageable," Rachel explained. "Sometimes the most important mission is the one that prevents the need for any other missions." That evening, Lauren sat in her new quarters: private room, advanced communication equipment, access to resources she'd never expected. She thought about the orders that had changed everything, about Commander Harper's recognition of her deliberate failure, about Rachel's promise that she would learn to use her abilities in service of something meaningful. 3 weeks ago, she'd been afraid of what she might become. Tonight, she was eager to find out. The next morning brought advanced training that would prepare her for missions that officially didn't exist, conducted by operators who officially weren't there, in defense of American interests that officially couldn't be protected by conventional means. Lauren Williams had found her calling, not in the bright lights of traditional military service, but in the shadows where the most important work was done by people whose names would never be known. Some failures, she reflected, were just success wearing a disguise, and some orders changed everything. The specialized training program would push her beyond every limit she thought existed, teaching her skills that bridged the gap between soldier and something altogether more precise. She would learn to operate in the spaces between nations, in the moments before conflicts erupted, in the silence where whispered orders could prevent wars. Most importantly, she would discover that her fear of her own capabilities hadn't been weakness. It had been wisdom, preparing her for responsibilities that required both lethal precision and unwavering moral clarity. In the days that followed, Lauren would learn that the orders Commander Harper had given her weren't just a second chance. They were an invitation to join an invisible war being fought by people who understood that the greatest victories were the ones that prevented defeat from ever becoming possible. And in that understanding, she would find not just purpose, but peace with the lethal gifts that had once terrified her into deliberate failure. The program would transform her from someone afraid of her own capabilities into someone who wielded those capabilities with surgical precision in service of missions that protected innocent lives while never seeking recognition for the sacrifices made in shadows. Within weeks, Lauren would be operating in environments most people couldn't imagine, completing objectives that would never appear in any official record, serving her country in ways that required both the ultimate in professional competence and the ultimate in personal anonymity. She would become exactly what she had always been meant to be, not a failed Marine, but a guardian operating beyond the boundaries of conventional warfare, protecting American interests through precision, intelligence, and the kind of quiet courage that shapes history from the shadows. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, you can subscribe to see more incredible stories like this one.